G8. There we go. Cool. Hello, everybody. You guys are probably wondering, why is she always wearing black? I'm not, I promise. It's navy. God damn it. Okay, make sure we're live. So much easier to do it on my iPod until I get the dual camera set up and the computer's not laggy. When you come in, say hello. Come on. I'm live. Come on. At least I'm pretty sure I'm live. Yeah, it says I'm live. Ha-ha. Yeah, it says I'm live. Yay! There's sound. Cool. So, today is going to be fun-filled and jam-packed. So sorry if it's a little bit laggy. So what we're doing today, last week we went over Major Arcana, you know, where all the different shadow sides of a Major Arcana card and what those scary cards actually mean. But there's more than one scary card in Tarot, and I especially tried to dig down deep and find all the scary cards that could potentially be there for, you know, the Minor Arcana. Because some of the scariest things come from, you know, the tiny cards. Let's make sure I don't have a bunch of things open. Okay. That might be causing some lag. Okay, there we go. Alright. So, it gets a little bit more complicated when it gets to the Minor Arcana in general for readings because you have so many extra elements going on. And the way that I like to think of it is there's parent cards to the Minor Arcana cards. If you get, you know, the Major Arcana, you're like, holy shit, this is really, really bad. But if you get the Minor Arcana, it's like, I guess I could still work with this. So, one of the differences that's going to come up here, and then I'm going to mention a bunch, is the elemental differences when it comes to Minor Arcana. And because each of the suits are a different element. So if you're very, very new to tarot reading, like I know a couple people are in this group, it breaks it down like this. Usually I consider Major Arcana as spirit. So if you want to do timelines, undetermined. Or keep pulling until you get a number. And we're going to take it from the slowest. So pentacles, or coins, or discs for some decks, or earth. It deals with material things, physical, tangible things, making plans, goal settings, finances, your home life. If it's wealth, or you can punch it, it's earth. And because of that, it's the slowest moving. And it's very logical if you think about it. Earth grows super, super slow. It takes a season or so for your plants to grow in your garden, you know? So, it takes a second. That makes sense in timeline for Earth, so we have it for years when it comes to timelines. Water is the next slowest one. Water is cups, chalices, hearts for if you're using the Enchanted World Tarot. And it deals with emotions, intuition, psychic abilities, love. It's like the High Priestess and the Lovers had a baby. That's cups. And think of it how slow the ocean can move, or a trickling creek in the forest that's just meandering along. It's super calm. It's really slow. So it's months. You know, we're not talking about raging storms here. We're talking about in their natural element. It'll be months in terms of timeline for water. And this is when you pull the cards. So, air is the next one. Air deals with swords. I don't know if there's daggers. I don't know if there's any other differences in decks besides swords, really. Yeah, I don't think so. Let me know in the comments below if there is a difference in some decks for swords, for air. It deals with intellect, communication, majority of the fucked up cards that I have pulled out here, because they're everywhere on my desk right now, are in swords, and it's the scarier suit, because it deals with so many things. Swords can also deal with illusions, and a little bit of the workplace. Fire and swords, like, wands and swords can share a little bit of the workplace. And if you're not having crazy winds, like here in Colorado right now, air is all around us, but it's always constantly moving. So that's weeks, because wind can blow pretty damn quickly. Fire is the fastest. It deals with creativity, fertility. A lot of fighting cards are in this one, and sex. Whenever I am asked sexual questions for a reading, I always look for fire. Like, does he love me? If I don't see cups or any kind of water and I only see fires, like, well, he wants to bone you, that's about it. So, and fire burns quickly, as we know very quickly, like, you light something on fire and it's gone. So that's days. And how to break it down even more if you want to, for example, the 3 of Swords, and someone was asking for a timeline, that'd be 3 weeks. 9 of Wands, 9 days. And I always give that as the minimum. I always want to extend it a little longer, except for when it gets to Pentacles, because when it asks timeline for Pentacles, it'll sometimes change it to months. Because if you tell somebody it's going to take 9 years for something to change, and it's a relationship, I doubt they're going to put 9 years of their life, unless they're a very patient person, into changing things. Yeah. You need to... that's just me personally. I adapted a little bit. One more thing. Let me make sure this is actually not super laggy on your side, because it kinda is. At least when I look at the thing. Let's close some background stuff. I should have did this beforehand, I'm sorry. So, I want you to keep timing in mind when it comes to these cards. Because some of these cards are very quick. Okay, that might have done something. Are very quick, and some are very slow. And so you get the emphasis of the card, because we deal a lot. I like to teach a lot with intuitive reading, characterization. And I am going to give you the regular keywords here, because one thing I also noticed that has come up with questions about the workshop is what deck to use. You can use whatever the hell deck you want. And that's why for this live stream, I'm going to go ahead and show you from my Witch's Tarot, which is the closest thing to Rider-Waite that I have, besides Rider-Waite. And I just have that on the computer. And my Dreams of Gaia, which, if you don't know the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, I even have the guidebook with me, and I have little tabs so I can quickly get to the things. This is the ultimate intuitive deck. Like, this author, Raven Flynn? Yeah, Raven Flynn. She speaks to my soul. Everything is made up of energy and choices and everything like that, and she completely breaks apart the major arcana, names them different things, adds extra cards, so there's 81 cards in the deck. I still consider it tarot, because it is tarot. It still goes along with it. It just makes the major arcana a little bit more like oracle cards, and there's so many third eyes and chakras, and it can scare the hell out of people. But I want you to compare so you can see what I mean for each one. So, we're going to go through these. We're going to start with the fastest this time. And we're going to do the 5 of Wands. Everybody knows the 5 of Wands. For Rider-Waite, it's 5 guys trying to put up a tent. Or they're fighting over wands. Then maybe one girl. Someone pointed out that one of them looks like a girl. For Witch's Tarot, it's a bunch of people flying on dragons, fighting in a battle. This makes sense because it usually deals with fighting, workplace problems like gossip, if a coworker caused you to lose your job, or is starting unnecessary bullshit. That's 5 of Wands. Anger, accusing people, and I say accusing people because they're all pointing the wands at each other. And these wands are beautiful. They're covered in white flowers, almost like chamomile. So it's like, I'm accusing you with words of passion. more anything else. It's not actual communication, it's more I'm directing my anger at you. Now, if we compare this to Dreams of Gaia, holy shiz. A lot more, sorry, I'm trying to make sure the glare is getting off. Aha, there we go. There'll be glare on me. So, little bit of a difference here. It's got these two guys and they're just staring each other down, you know? And their hair is made of fire. There's a Celtic knot in the background. They have gauntlets made with electricity and fire on their hands. And the thing that stands out specifically for this deck, there's no third eyes on these guys. And this deck loves to put third eyes everywhere and chakras everywhere. So these guys aren't listening to their intuition in the slightest. And you can see where the hottest fire is because there's a blue outline. Like if you really, really look at the card, there's a blue outline around their hair, behind them, and blue fire is the hottest fire. So they're not thinking with their brains at all. And I also bookmarked these so we could look at the keywords that they give. So it says a time of chaos, conflict, or confrontation, a battle for control and dominance. Do not judge or condemn others. Base your concerns on fact. Avoid pack mentality behavior. That makes so much sense when it comes to the Five of Wands. But you see how there's a difference between these two cards. This one, everybody's kind of acting like the individual, and Rider-Waite-Smith really wants you to go along with your own thing. This one's kind of more like beware of pack mentality. If one person's accused, everybody's going to gang up on that guy. So it's similar with there's groups, but this one focuses on like two people fighting. And they're not in traditional clothing either. They're wearing loincloths. So it's kind of like that caveman aspect. Shadow work readings, you get scared of these because then you're like, ugh, who's fighting? This obviously isn't a good card. I must be really argumentative, which you could be. But also it's telling you need to be, like this one was saying, beware, like use your thoughts. Get some air in here. I notice a lot of the times with people who have a lot of fire or a lot of air in their chart are really lacking in water and earth, and vice versa. And by chart, I mean when I do a reading, when I look at a spread. So if you're doing a spread, we've talked about before, notice the things, like the small things when you're doing intuitive reading. So notice, are you missing an earth in here? And literally earth, because it's the Five of Fire. So are you missing some water in here to quench out that fire? That's going to explain why you're so pissed off. And this is your deck's way of saying calm the hell down and use some logic. Don't. Or ground your actions before you act. Don't just go blatant off into nowhere. So, the next one, I feel like some people are going to question why I picked it, but I have my reasons. And it's the Nine of Wands. So, it's typically, I believe the Nine of Wands for the Rider-Waite-Smith has somebody standing, and they're kind of beaten up. And they're standing in front of this wall of wands, and you can tell that he's been through a battle. This chick is not beaten up in the slightest. The sun is behind her, wind is at her back, she's ready for battle. And I always put this with shadow work readings, because you can be as ready for battle as you want, you can be as prepared as you want, but if you're being argumentative and jumping the gun and jumping to conclusions, this is hotline energy. If you do that too much, then you're fucking yourself over way ahead of time. And it's really, really, really bad. And it shows quite a difference because look at the Dreams of Gaia version. This guy, who is as lumescent as Seamus, I'm so sorry. This guy's Irish. He's God. Who's lumescent. He's holding this white flower in his hand, Beauty and the Beast style. His sacral chakra is on point because he's got a little sun there and it's aura. He's made from the earth because he's got these tree trunks coming up. There's so much coming from this card, but I'm not getting anything argumentative here. You know, compared to this one, it's like you're jumping to conclusions. This one literally is all about like creation and stuff. So, what does the Nine of Fire mean for this deck? Move through life with confidence. A time of fruition and attainment. Knowledge and experience bring ease. Don't seek praise or affirmation. Give your best every time. Once you finish, move on. Simplify your life. Remove obstructions and restrictions. So, it's saying just kind of what this woman is probably thinking through her head. I'm hot shit, but don't let your pride or your ego get out of control. That makes sense. Because he's created this beautiful flower. He doesn't have a third eye, but he's got some light beaming from here. And he's super in tune with who he is and what he is, because you know he's a 9. He's almost to the 10 point. But his ego is what he's got to keep in check in order to get to that 10 point, you know? So that really makes sense. So in shadow work readings, it would just say, you're on the right path, just be careful. Like, don't go all chariot on us, because chariot for me, for the major arcana, sometimes screams a little bit of ego and rushing to conclusions. Don't jump ahead too much, but just keep an eye on your fire, and you're doing fantastic, because you're already creating and you're showing abundance, but you just need to keep an eye on it. You know? Cool. So that takes care of fire for this one. And another thing that I want to point out, just real quick for this, it can really, for a shadow work reading, show me that there's a lack of the strength card. Because to me, strength is all about patiently waiting. There is strength in stillness, in not acting, in watching others and then acting. Kind of, to give a silly example, Jackie Chan in Rush Hour, how he's like, the entire time he acted like he couldn't understand English just to see what Chris Tucker was going to do and what he would say about him. That he was the personification of the strength card. So this sometimes can denote a lack of that, of patience. You're ready and you're willing to go fighting, but you need to slow your roll and wait a second. A little too eager. If that makes sense, go ahead and pop that in the chat. I want to make sure I'm still live because no one's in here. Is it actually Friday? Did I pick the wrong day? Yeah, it's Friday. I don't know. Whatever. Continuing. Next, we're going to go to the Three of Swords. We're going to go into the swords. And this is a scary suit because this is all the argumentative cards. And I only picked a couple. Kind of wish I had pulled out the Two of Swords, but it's okay. We'll just skip over that one. Because Three of Swords, we touched on last week, can be super, super scary. Especially if you don't acknowledge, hey, there's swords in my chest, I need to pull them out. Kind of thing. And I wanted to bring this up because it is so different in the Dreams of Gaia. There is nothing about hearts and pain in here. This guy is... And I have to make sure I picked the right card. Yeah, I did. It's the right symbol. It's air. I have to keep checking, is this air? Are you sure? Because this screams more Three of Pentacles vibe to me. He's sitting there, this dragon's on his shoulder. He's got an owl on the book. He's going through alchemy. He's got a mortar and pestle books. He's got the cosmos behind him with the little stargate. So, how the hell does this equate to this? Which is a really good question if you have a deck like this that's completely different from Rider-Waite-Smith, and then you're like, how does this attune to shadow work? You're doing traditional readings. So, let's take a look at what it's supposed to be for air. It says, expand your mind. Every experience offers a lesson. Education is a lifelong process. Learning aids comprehension. Lessons repeat until we understand. Don't kill the messenger. Ignorance is nothing to be proud of. Learning transforms talent into skill. Alright. I can understand a little bit more now. You can learn something that causes, the traditional heartbreak. So, you find out that your guy's cheating on you, but you find out through a friend. Don't kill the messenger, it's saying. This dragon is here, and the owl is here as messengers to this guy, you know? And they're telling him, you may not like this information. Knowledge, it's kind of like ignorance is bliss. So that would be the shadow side of this. Ignorance is bliss. You're completely ignoring the fact that you have swords in your chest. You're completely ignoring the fact that these facts are true. Okay, that makes total sense here. And then what else did it say? Lessons repeat until we understand. That's right. So that makes sense as well. In love, in work, you're going to keep getting more swords in your chest if you keep putting yourself in situations that are crappy for you. If you keep chasing after the same people, or keep allowing yourself to be taken advantage of, so this keeps happening to you, then you're shit out of luck, you know? Let's tweak the lighting. All up in my face. Ah, better. Okay, much better. So that really makes sense for these. Because if you keep, like for example, I've noticed this, especially since I looked at my birth chart this week. I sat down and I went through completely my birth chart, looked up what each of the signs in the different houses means, everything like that. And I have a lot of Gemini in my chart. And one of my main issues, actually, with having Scorpio in my 10th house, which is my mother house, I am super, actually no, was it Scorpio? One of my houses, I am incredibly detail-oriented, and I process information super quickly, which is why sometimes I talk a little fast, and I communicate all the time, and I have to talk about my findings, which is the Gemini in me. But the problem is, for example, when I'm reading something, if I get bored even slightly, I skip ahead. And then I have to go back and reread that passage sometimes 3 times. Or if something is diverting my attention, like I can't have the TV on or any music on while I'm reading unless it's classical or something ambient. So if I have any kind of distraction, I have to go back and read it. Or if I'm talking to somebody, I have to, and they cut me off, I'll forget what I was trying to say, and I'll get super mad because I don't remember. And it's that kind of thing of this cycle is going to keep repeating until I acknowledge that, figure that out about myself, and then start taking the swords out. Like, okay, it's nobody's fault but mine that I have this issue with communication. I'm the one that's impatient, and I have to keep rereading the same passage from it. So it's my fault, it's nobody else's fault, so I need to calm my shit, you know? So it's very similar here. Don't kill the messenger, and understand that the cycle is going to keep repeating itself. You're going to have to keep learning the same lesson over and over and over again until it clicks mentally, because this is air, swords, until it clicks mentally that maybe this guy isn't the best for me. Maybe, you know, I need to slow down and actually enjoy reading. Things like that. Okay. Awesome. Next one. 5 of Swords. That's right. And I wanted to bring up 5 of Swords because in the Red or White Smith, it looks a little bit like the 5 of Wands. They're very similar. Only this guy is holding swords and these other people are walking away from him, which is why both of those cards can deal with workplace issues and gossip. Only this one is more mental strain because it's intellect and there's a communication issue. For Witch's Tarot, it has, trying to get it, there we go. These 5 swords pointing at this moth, and there's these fairies laughing. I think I've mentioned this before. And at first when I saw this, I was a little bit confused. I'm like, are we going to pin a moth to the wall? And it's kind of like that because this deals with more humiliation and embarrassment. And it also deals with workplace gossip. Your words are hurting me, not your physical anger and gang mentality, but your words and what you think about me are hurting, and it's embarrassing, you know? So something like that. The Dreams of Gaia interpretation, if I get the lighting correct. There we go, kinda. Has this beautiful angel. And she's blindfolded, so it's got an Eight of Swords vibe, and she's holding this smiling comedy mask in her hands. But she's crying underneath, you know, the blindfold. So this one it shows a lot of depression to me instead, where it's not so much. There is a communication issue here because she's hiding herself, obviously, from behind the mask. So let's take a look at what Flan wanted us to take away from this card. Come on. Right, a conflict between reality and belief. It's a time for honesty. Let it go of illusion and pretense. Face a painful reality. You're not alone. Drop the mask. Reveal your true self. Forgive others for wearing their masks. Okay, so there's a difference then here. It's kind of an ego thing again, where you're taking things a little bit too seriously. There's a communication issue. You're embarrassed even though it might be constructive criticism. You see it as the world is laughing at you. But shadow work is telling you no, it's constructive criticism. Stop being a crybaby about it. And it's kind of similar for the Dreams of Gaia. You have your own mask. I go to work, I have a professional mask. At home, I take it off. And I have mama mask. Or wife mask. If I'm with my mother-in-law, we have a professional relationship and that's about it mask. So there's different masks that you wear, and everybody wears their own masks. You never truly see that actual person behind the mask until you're really, really close with them. So one issue a lot of people have is accepting the positive criticism and then taking the mask off. You know? It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because it's like, what if I do, and then you guys just continue to point and laugh at me or tell me my real, authentic self is not good enough. So that's a worry behind the shadow work part of this card, because then it's like, you're hiding behind pretenses. So you need to stop it. But at the same time, you have that fear of what's going to happen if you do. So this would kind of be a little bit of a fear card. It's kind of like the precursor to death for Major Arcana. You're forcing yourself to have a change. You can see it coming because everybody's giving you criticism, but at the same time, it's really needed. And you need to take that mask off and show the world your pain, show who you are, you know, and be honest. And as tarot readers, this is really, really important. So if this comes up during your shadow work reading with us, it's just going to mean that you need to not be hiding as much. Go ahead and share. And especially in this group, go ahead. There's no Five of Swords here. I'm happy to give help. So, talk. It'll be awesome. So, next one. We have the Eight of Swords. And this aggravates me every time I see the Eight of Swords. So, got this chick standing here on the side of... It looks like a giant river, and she's surrounded by swords. She's barefoot. She's bound, we assume, because we can't see the knot. And then she's got a blindfold on. But if you take a look closely at the actual art, it's just got this, you know, piece of cloth over her eyes. She could easily move her head out the way, and it's not gonna... It'll be better. But she's choosing not to. So... For me, this card is all about illusions and barriers. It's your personal barriers. Manipulation and ignoring help. And I say ignoring help because in the card, if it actually clears up, it's kind of a bright card. Now you can see it. There's a castle in the background. And castles, if you want to go by symbols, are for structure and stability. They're home. A village is for communication and helping, you know? And she's ignoring that that's back there. If you just take off the blindfold, you'll see you have help. Just scream a little bit and they'll come get you. You know? And the theme is kind of similar with Dreams of Gaia. So this guy has one sword going up One sword coming down. And if I believe correctly, and it's an angel that's happening, that this is happening to. If I believe correctly, yeah, he's also chained. He has some keys on him. And his third eye is closed. He does have a third eye. It's that purple dot in the middle of his forehead, but it's closed. He's not listening to his intuition. So, I believe I remember what this means, but I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want the criticism. Okay. Ego does not always tell the truth. Effect will always follow cause. Your memory's imperfect. We all make mistakes. Consequences are inescapable. Self-justification does not mitigate harm. So, just because you're dishing it out and you're defending yourself with the sword up doesn't mitigate the harm you're doing with the sword down, you know? So, for shadow work, it's saying you might have somebody in this situation. That person that's encircled by swords doesn't have to be you. It can be somebody else in your life that you're doing that to. This gives, like, a 1920s twirly mustache chained to the train track vibe for me. You know? You're like, to somebody else. And that's really messed up. You're going to let somebody get run over by a train or be hurt because of your own ego. And it deals with ego and communication. You're hurting somebody with your words, with mental manipulation, so like mental abuse, emotional abuse a little bit. And you're probably that stability, that castle in the background, but you're refusing to help because you're like, I'm punishing you for it. So, real life example for this, I dated a guy in high school. I was stupid, love of my life, whatever. No, he wasn't. And he thought it was funny. He considered it punishing me whenever I did something he didn't like, or said something he didn't like, to not talk to me for a month or so. And we didn't go to the same school. I barely saw him unless I, like, communicated with him we were going to see each other. So it really messed me up whenever he wouldn't talk to me. And he knew this, and he knew that trigger was no communication, to put those swords up. So he'd put me in that spot. If I got this in my own reading, this would tell me, okay, I'm the person in the middle. I'm the victim. But if I were to turn around and do it the same to him, which I did once, and he saw what I meant by that's a little bit fucked up, then I'm doing it to him. Because I don't believe this girl is actually bound. I don't believe that blindfold is over her face. It's all an illusion. It's a mental block. It's taking the Two of Swords, which is, you know, come at me, bro, in more of, it's taking a hay wall and turning it into brick. It's intensifying it by a lot. And you might personally put this wall up and then call yourself the victim, like, nobody wants to talk to me, but you have these huge trust issues and huge walls up, then it's your own fault. No one can get in there to talk to you if you refuse to have help. And it's the same thing like this. If you are so willing to stab other people, hurt other people's mental stability with your words and your actions, because it's air, it does also deal with action, you're still hurting yourself. And you feel chained to it because there are chains around this guy's hands. But I don't see any locks. It looks just like, you know, the chains are tucked into his shirt, you know, up into his sleeves. So it's the illusion of being chained down and having an attachment. But every time you give in to that, you're hurting yourself. And the cards are saying, stop it. You know? And again, if you have questions, even in the replay, go ahead and ask. But I wanted this to be an introduction to cards that might come up during the workshop. Because it's really, 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 I feel important to get, you know, the out the way. Just in case you get the cards. So, okay, last one for air. Nine of Swords. I've talked about the Nine of Swords quite a bit. And if you haven't seen my other videos, or been onto any of the other live streams where I've mentioned this, The inspiration behind the now, you know, the Rider Waite Smith that was published in 1909 was Juliet taking belladonna in order to make herself look dead. Almost killed her. I will say that. Belladonna's nightshade, don't do that. In Romeo and Juliet, so she didn't have to marry Paris. You take a look at this, and as soon as I get this pulled up in a reading, I'm like, okay, I'm being overdramatic about something. But it really digs deeper than that. It's also some depression. I can think of a time in my life where I literally held myself up in my room and burned candles and wrote and cried and blasted 3 Days Grace and Evanescence and was just upset because of a lot of shit that was going on in my life. So it's also a mental thing. You feel like you're alone, but you're the one with the swords up on the window. It's your room. You decorated it. You didn't have to. So it's just an illusion that you're walled in. And there's a communication block. There's also an intuition block, because if you look through the window, there's the moon outside, you know? So you're blocking yourself from your intuition because the moon's intuition. And that's just breaking it down with the symbols. I wanted to mention this because frickin' Dreams of Gaia, this is one of those cards where everybody gets a little bit scared because they're like, it's so so symbolic. So it's got this woman, and if you take a look at it, one of her eyes kind of has a hawk over her right eye. She's got a lotus in her hands like this, and there's a dagger where my wrists meet. She's naked. She's an angel. She's got wings, and she's got a stargate with rainbow cosmic energy behind her. So when it comes to this, sorry for the background. I'm live. Give me a minute.
Okay.
So when it comes to this, it's really, really symbolic. So let's take a look. That's the 8. Let's go to the 9. 9 of air. Open to possibilities. Possibilities are infinite. Know thyself and know the universe. What dwells within you dwells within nature. Belief creates. Imagine your fears away. Okay, so the idea of our fears are just mental things. And I was thinking about this week, that money blocks are very similar. I love working with energy blocks. Whenever I do a reading, that's what I specifically work with, is energy blocks. So this is a block in and of itself. It's all about communication and blocks. So you have the power to manifest what you want by thinking about it and putting your energy into it, but you also have the power to take that away and clear that away just by saying or thinking and communicating, I want it gone. You know? So that's a really cool way to look at it, and you don't need a bunch of swords across your window in order to, like, you know, get that. But just looking at the card, you may not understand that. You might understand, you know, one with the universe, because she does have a third eye that's open. And all this cosmic energy, and a little bit of manifesting, but I guess one way you could take a look at this, the lotus blossom in her hand. Lotuses are made from muddy water. So they are coming from an environment that is full of filth and gunk, but at the same time, you create something beautiful. So I can understand that symbolically as well. Like, you can come from something really, really horrible, it's still manifest into something beautiful, you know? It's a really cool way to look at it. Alright. Now, let's go to water. Okay. The 4 of Cups. Alright, so Rider Waite Smith usually has this guy sitting under a tree, and there's a cloud with a hand holding, like Monty Python style, holding a grail out to him. But he's more focused on what's going on with him in the present by looking at the stuff. So, similar here, only it's a little boy sitting underneath a tree looking at the 3 cups that he does have that are empty, and 1 cup is being held by a mermaid. And you know, there's this beautiful waterfall in the background. He's more focused on his 3 cups than, holy crap, there's a mermaid next to me. You know? Something like that. So it's very, it really deals a lot with disappointment. He's disappointed. He only has 3 cups instead of 4. Boo. Focus on the minor issues. I get this a lot in love readings, especially when the person is asking over and over and over and over again, why hasn't she talked to me? Why haven't they reached out to me? My relationship feels horrible. I just wanted to check in because I feel like he doesn't like me anymore. When it's like, yes, he does. I can see he does. You're just focusing on the tiny little shit, like him not taking out the garbage. You know? In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to ruin your relationship. And if it does, priorities. It's also ignoring the natural wonders of the world around us. So this would be somebody who walks around and stares at their phone all day, which is really easy to do nowadays. If we take a look at this with the Dreams of Gaia, it's a little bit more of an interesting image. Boom, there we go. This guy, he's scarred on the right side of his face. He's got this crown. The water cards are just so gorgeous. He's looking at this mirror with a 3rd eye on the back. His 3rd eye is not activated yet. There's a crown over where his 3rd eye would be, but he is gaining that insight through looking through the mirror. And he's completely blind on one eye, and it's almost like he got shot or some kind of deformity or scarring on his face. And I believe this card is all about loving yourself, if I remember correctly. Yep, you are beautiful. Be aware of weakness, but focus on the strengths. Mistakes are an opportunity to learn. Let go of the ideal of perfection. Love yourself for who you are. Happiness at another's expense. The emotional cost of your actions. So, there was a movie. Can't remember what it was, but every time this guy... Howl's Moving Castle. There we go, I remember. Every time he used his power, he would turn more into, you know, this dark being. You know, he turned more into this bird. And you saw that actively at one point. His hand was all clawed and covered in feathers and things. Similar idea with Black Swan. The more obsessed she became with being perfect and only her in the role, the more her mental psyche broke, and the more, like, her knees bent, and she was pulling feathers out of her shoulder, and things like that. So, the more she freaked out and turned into a swan. And then killed herself at the end. So, spoilers, sorry. Swan Lake. Yeah, princess kills herself. So, this card is going more for you need to love and accept your flaws. And not focus so much on your weaknesses. If this guy only focused on, I can't see out of this eye, he's going to miss so much about the world that he can see out of the other. He's looking in the mirror and he looks like a nobleman. He's got a cape. He's got one of those gold collars. You know, he looks spiffed up. But if he only focused on that one small deformity, he wouldn't be able to live his life with the richness that he used to, you know? So when this comes up in a shadow work reading, both, like, the 4 of Cups, 4 of Water in general, 4 of Hearts, you need to focus more on, is it worth the mental strain for me to be focusing on these tiny little things as compared to the bigger picture, you know? Is it worth staring just at these 3 cups and wishing that I had another one instead of looking to the side and holy crap, a mermaid, my life's been changed forever, you know? And think about that when it comes to your own shadow work reading. Is it worth focusing on the tiny little details that you don't have in control in your life? Like, for example, my 1-year-old tosses everything around the bedroom because we live in one room together. She sleeps right next to me in her crib. And like, I can't even watch a movie with my husband at night because the light will from the TV will turn her on and it'll keep her awake. Instead of focusing on those little things, except that's what comes when you live in a situation like that, or accept that she is a precocious 1-year-old and she will grow out of it. And then I can exact my revenge later. So, next card is the Five of Cups. So, for this one, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, usually it's this guy in a black cloak and he's focusing on the fact that 3 of the cups are turned over and spilt everywhere and only 2 remain. Very similar here, it's this mermaid only, and she's focusing on the fact that 3 of the cups are turned over and 2 are upright. So, I always take this as, especially reverse when it comes to shadow side, as a minor form of depression or disappointment. Again, focusing on the little things. This one and the 4 cups have a lot in common. But this is more taking a pessimistic outlook on life in general. Not just ignoring the wonder of the world, but also like your world is shit from your perspective. Dreams of Gaia is a little bit more with mourning and actual depression. Because you have this woman, well, this mermaid sitting here, and she's super upset. And just these fish are looking at her like, are you okay? It's a little bit more of a mourning side. So, if I take a look at this, you're feeling alone and isolated, without hope, consumed by fears and doubts, unable to see a way forward, trapped in the moment, feeling angry and betrayed, mourn your loss, and you're playing the victim. Yeah, that can be another thing with the Five of Cups. Stop playing the victim. It's too much like the Nine of Swords. Stop playing the victim. Because she could easily look up and see the rays of the sun coming down from the surface of the water. Easily. But she's choosing to look down where it's darker in the photograph and feeling more stuck where she actually is. She's not enlightened. She's not using her intuition. She's focusing more on, I feel personally like crap right now, so I'm going to play the victim and, you know, cry my eyes out for days on end. And it won't be necessary. You know? So. Hang on. Okay. So, the next one that we're going to go over are the Pentacles. And this is the last part. So, we have the Five of Pentacles here. Now, when it comes to Rider-Waite-Smith, it has, you know, the image of these 2 people in the blizzard. One of them is using crutches because he's disabled, and they're outside a church trying to find sanctuary. That's a common image. This one, I like a little bit more. It's a tree that has these pentacles on it in winter, so the tree's dead, but there's this flower in the foreground. Like, you can kind of see it. There you go. There's this flower, but it's broken in the foreground. So, for me, usually it means poverty, wasteland. It's kind of like a mini death card. Especially materially, because it's pentacles. But, instead, if we take a look at it, it's also, this is the card for me that's a little flip-floppy. It's either your world is a void wasteland and there's nothing that can grow here, or it's a chance to start over and start fresh. I tend to take the positive one, but if the shadow work one would be this, there's no opportunities here. You need to move on. Dreams of Gaia is a little more interesting. So it's got this devil on the side with these cards, kind of like this gypsy charlatan. There's claws on her fingers, but there's a person on the side here. That's kind of an illusion. And this one is all about material trickery. This person, you know, is the stereotypical I'm scared of tarot readers card. So it's a little bit more like a charlatan. And if we take a look at it, you avoid the easy answers, think twice about taking risks. Something is not as it seems. Be honest with yourself. Do you gamble with another's future? Look beyond selfish desires and blame. Consider the feelings of others. So this one is saying that there's a lack of water in here. That would explain why this woman is kind of gray-blue. She's feeling some intense emotions right now. So there's this lack of it. So you need to be careful. Just because you're in a slump and you're being materially dishonest doesn't mean that you get to play around with other people's money and other people's emotions. That's how you break relationships, especially professional ones, because again, this is material. So I would consider this along with at work. Don't steal things from your job just because you need to make ends meet. You know, things like that. And a shadow work reading, it can seem like it's such a horrible card to get because it means that, you know, your poverty. It could be that you're focusing more on how you are personally feeling and how crappy you feel out in the snow, but there's another person with you out there and they're also feeling like hell, so you need to get over it, you know? So, last card. This has been a long stream. How long have we been going at this? 51. Jeez. Yes. Been up here for an hour. So, the very last card is the Seven of Pentacles. So, this card deals a lot with patience and hard work and the fruits of your labor, but the shadow side, you're really impatient, or you're like, am I wasting my time working on this one particular bush when it hasn't given me anything yet? This guy's waiting for the 10 pentacles to come out of the bush, but there's only 7, so he's impatiently waiting for the fruits of his labor to come around, you know? The impatience part is what happens in a shadow work reading, you know? The impatience part is, and wondering what if you should just give up and move on to another project. This reminds me, this documentary where this guy was trying to figure out how this one particular Renaissance artist was able to paint using, like it was a photograph, and everything was super detailed and super realistic, and he realized he did it with a light and a mirror, and he went about to copy one of his paintings. So he set up this whole warehouse, and he got everything down to the costume, and he sat there for hours meticulously doing everything, and then he noticed like the piano was warped at one point, and it really messed him up. And he said at one point, would I move on if I wasn't making a documentary and put this much time and money into my project? Because this was a few years long. He said, yeah, I totally would. I'm rich enough to move on to something else, but I'm gonna finish this. And he did, and now the painting is hanging up in his room. So he got the positive side of this, but he did feel the shadow side of it, where he's like, I'm sick of this. The 7 in the Dreams of Gaia, the 7 of Earth, is more spiritual, because here's those chakras I was talking about. This guy has a third eye, but there's nothing there. So he's acknowledged that he has an intuition, but he hasn't, visualized it. And he's on fire. He's a tree in the middle of the forest. He's got these horns, very Celtic looking. He's got a snake that's curling around his solar plexus. And he's just perfectly at peace. And if you look at the tree, it goes from spring to summer to fall for the leaves. Super gorgeous, right? The actual meaning behind this. Get into nature, let Gaia heal you. Connection between self and the world. All is connected and has influence. Address the stress. Meditate and still your mind. Put down the tech toys. So, the 7 of Pentacles can indicate tools. And, the fruits of your labor, because he has a hoe. And symbolically, that means like you're using your tools effectively. The Dreams of Gaia is telling us to put the tools down and just work with your hands and get in touch with the earth. So maybe that's advice for this guy in the card, for this character. You need to put down the hoe and get into the earth with your actual hands. And you need to do it yourself. And you need to meditate. Get back in touch with the reason that you started growing this plant in the first place. Get back in touch with the reason you really want this bush to flourish. Is it for money? Is it for food for your family? or you want a limited time frame because it's winter coming up. You know, there's reasons for this. So think about that. Don't be so impatient with yourself. You need to put the tech away, you know. That really makes sense. So, lots of Minor Arcana cards. And lots of things to keep in mind for our workshop. Now, I don't want you to forget that next Friday at the same time is the actual workshop. So at noon in the Tarot and Tea group, I'm going to go ahead and paste the link again right now, if it doesn't freeze on me. There we go. Come on. Aha. And pin. So, I want you to remember you need to sign up for the actual workshop in order to get the freebie afterwards and to get the replay. Because you'll have a forever replay sent to you as long as you sign up for the list. And we have a few people so far. Let me take a look at how many there are, because I feel like we have quite a bit. Yep, events. 8 going and 8 maybe. Cool. So, that's okay. Just keep at it. Like, make sure at least that you've signed up. And then you'll be okay. Because then you'll get the forever replay. And then in the group you can share your spread, because we're going to do a live spread together. So, make sure you sign up. It's going to be fun. I'm going to show up. I'll be in my costume for Halloween, even though it won't be Halloween anymore. Just to get into the spirit. I will be using my Halloween Oracle. Just because this is both a Tarot and Oracle spread, and it works for both, and that is the most shadow worky deck that I personally own. If I wanted to get even more so, I could use my husband's deck. But go ahead and come with your deck. We're going to sit down and we'll do the spread together, and it's going to be awesome. Okay? And if you have any questions about anything, just post in the comments, shoot me a message, shoot me an email. I'm easy to get a hold of. So, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will see you next week. Bye.